From threatening to drag Dricus Du Plessis' corpse across South Africa to being called a wannabe African champion, Israel Adesanya is not exactly new to rivalries, but he now has still knocks in his sights. Just a few days ago, Izzy was able to defeat his arch-nemesis Alex Pereira, and in doing so, he reclaimed his throne at the top of the middleweight division. In the post-fight press conference, the last stylebender clarified that he has closed the chapter of his rivalry with the Poatan, and is looking forward to moving on to the next chapter in his career. So he just created a new nemesis for himself. Adesanya, without saying Du Plessis' name, said that he doesn't want to give this guy clout. In fact, he wants to whoop his so bad, and he wants to do that in Nigeria or South Africa.
I will gladly drag his carcass across South Africa. Wallahi.
But Dricus must earn that beating. He's got to show the champ something to earn that title fight. Izzy also warned the number 6 contender to choose his words wisely next time, because people came before him and they had to struggle and face all the issues, just so they could pave the way for him to enter that UFC cage. The last stylebender ended the topic by saying that he wishes that Du Plessis works hard and makes it, and then he'll gladly drag his carcass across South Africa. As you can expect, that didn't sit too well with Dricus. He wasn't going to sit quietly just because Izzy is the champ once more, so he responded in kind. The South African native took to Instagram and posted a photo of himself with his national flag, saying that the whole continent is behind him. Dricus also told Izzy that he can go celebrate his title win back in New Zealand, so that gives him no right to call himself African. Still Knox even challenged the new champ to a fight on neutral ground this year, and he was gracious enough to offer him another chance next year at the belt that rightfully belonged in Africa. All of that may have come from Du Plessis' heart, but it kind of backfired on him.
It's probably going to happen next year only. I don't want to wait that long. I will beat him in this year, and after that fight, if he still feels like he has all this power over me and he's like trying to intimidate me, then come to Africa next year and then we'll fight for the belt in a rematch where I'm the champ.
The post was full of comments from locals who refused to accept him as an African, and some even told him that he was a descendant of colonizers who came to steal away their nation's natural resources. To make matters worse for him, his coach also decided to jump into it all. Morne Visser was just reiterating the feelings of his trainee. He called Adesanya with his one-dimensional fighting style and said that they're going to take the belt from him because it belongs to a real African with an African passport. He also mentioned that people had been criticizing the South African contender because of his stamina issues. Visser clarified that his protege had been fighting with only 8% of oxygen intake due to an issue with his nostrils. Despite that, Dricus took 3 fights in only 7 months and won all of them emphatically. The coach also revealed that they have recently gotten surgery that was supposed to happen 3 years ago, and now they're ready for Adesanya. The post didn't help their cause at all. They received more hatred as a result, even though the poor guy was just standing up for Du Plessis. So the South African had to double back on what was said. Still Knox was on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani and said that he doesn't speak for Visser, but he went on to clarify that people are taking this the wrong way by making it all about their colors. That is something he doesn't condone at all, because there was no racial angle to what he said. People may be calling him a white man who isn't African, but the thing is that he only owns a South African passport. Dricus also added that this was about 2 guys fighting and nothing more. For him, it's not like I'm more African or you're more African. Izzy may have the right heritage, but the fact is that he doesn't live in his home country. So in Dricus' mind, he'll become the first African residing champion. The host also asked about what he thought of Izzy's comments. Dricus said that he isn't afraid of any threats, and he sure as hell isn't scared of a guy like Adesanya.
Because that fight's not happening this year. And he does not scare me. Not even one little bit.
In fact, he challenged the Kiwi Nigerian to show him how he was going to drag his carcass around. Du Plessis went on to add that UFC Africa isn't happening anytime soon. It might happen next year, or maybe even later than that. So he isn't going to sit around waiting for that. He wants to fight the last stylebender this year, and he's going to demolish him. Even after that, if Izzy feels that he could beat him up, then he can come to Africa the year after and fight him for the title the next next year. The South African middleweight ended the topic by saying that he's going to become the next champ and reminded Helwani once more that Izzy doesn't scare him at all. Some of you might be wondering why the last stylebender would call Du Plessis out of the blue. Well, he didn't. It was actually Still Knox who insulted the last stylebender first. You see guys, in March at UFC 285, the South African won his fight against Derek Brunson, after which, while talking to the media, he questioned whether a UFC title has ever been to his home continent of Africa. He was obviously targeting the likes of Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, and Francis Ngannou. Dricus was of the opinion that these guys, being born as Africans, have decided to abandon their home countries and have sought shelter in first world nations. So in his opinion, their claiming that they were African champions makes no sense. But the fact is that he resides in Africa right now, whereas Izzy, being of African descent, chooses to live in New Zealand. This caught a lot of attention from the Three Kings, and Usman even responded to Dricus for this. The Nigerian Nightmare was a former training partner of the South African, and he wasn't impressed with what Du Plessis said. The fallen king of welterweights said that because Still Knox went to Africa and was raised there, it doesn't make him African. Just like if he went to China and was raised there, it wouldn't make him more Chinese than the people already living there. Weird analogy, I know, but you guys get the point. Kamaru also backed Izzy and warned Dricus about what he chose to say. He might want to get up on the stage and talk on the mic just to make himself look good in front of the fans.
So, I would say to him, it's just, try to be a little bit more careful with what you say and how you say it, because, that's the thing nowadays is these younger guys and this newer guys that get up here and they just talk. They just, because they want to appeal to the fans, appeal to the people. But try to be more mindful.
But that might not necessarily end well for him down the line. Du Plessis' message probably got a little misinterpreted along the way. He just wanted a title shot at the end of the day, because he's done well in his career so far. Still Knox is currently on a 7-fight winning streak, 5 of which have been with the UFC. And he hasn't just been fighting anyone either. The South African contender has fought and dominated some of the best on the middleweight roster. His last 3 fights have been against Brad Tavares, Darren Hill, and Derek Brunson. All of these guys have been or are currently in the top 10 of the division. And the best part is that Du Plessis has managed to mop the floor with them. I mean, Brunson's corner was literally forced to throw in the towel because Dricus was putting such a bad beating on him. There's also the fact that there's no one left in the top 5 that Izzy hasn't already defeated, so Dricus might just have his wish granted by Uncle Dana. That was the feud between Israel Adesanya and Dricus Du Plessis explained.